The rain hammered the window like fists on a coffin lid. But it was his voice that shattered me first. "Alex, I can't do this anymore," Tristan gasped, his breath hot against my neck as he shoved me back against the dorm wall, eyes wild with something darker than the thunder outside. In that split second, before the betrayal hit like a freight train, I realized I'd fallen for the one person who could destroy me, and I didn't even care. It started innocently enough, the way these things do in the chaos of freshman orientation at NYU. I'd flown in from the sleepy suburbs of Ohio, wide-eyed and clutching my acceptance letter like a shield against the concrete jungle of Greenwich Village. My parents had driven me up in our old Ford Taurus, Dad cracking dad jokes about not letting the city eat you alive, Mom fussing over my laundry list of dorm rules. "Pick a good roommate, honey," she'd said, hugging me goodbye in the sticky August heat. "Someone who'll watch your back." Fate or the housing lottery had other plans. Tristan Morales, 6 feet 1 inch of lean muscle, olive skin, and eyes like polished obsidian, flung open our door on move-in day with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a grin that could disarm a SWAT team. "Yo, you must be Alex. I'm Tris. Hope you like late-night tacos and zero tolerance for bullshit." His handshake was firm, calloused from summers coaching soccer at some rec center in Queens, and just like that, the wrong dorm felt like the only one that mattered. We clicked from the jump. Our room in Weintraub Hall was a shoebox. 2 twin beds shoved against cinderblock walls painted that god-awful beige. A desk we jury-rigged into a kingdom of shared Spotify playlists and half-eaten bagels. Tristan was a theater major from the Bronx, all fire and flair, with a laugh that echoed down the hall like a spotlight cutting through fog. He dragged me to open mics in the village, where he'd belt out show tunes that made the crowd whoop, then crash back here dissecting every note over lukewarm beer from the corner bodega. I was the straight-laced psych major, buried in Freud and flashcards, but Tristan made studying feel like rebellion. "Life's too short for outlines, mi amigo," he'd say, tossing my highlighter across the room. "Feel it. Live it." I didn't see the signs at first. The way his gaze lingered when I stripped off my sweatshirt after a run, or how he'd freeze mid-sentence if I brushed past him in the cramped space. I chalked it up to bromance, the kind you read about in those coming-of-age flicks. 2 dudes against the world, navigating syllabi and subway delays. But New York has a way of stripping you bare, and by October, the air between us crackled like the fall leaves crunching underfoot in Washington Square Park. Enter Eduardo. Eddie, as he insisted, with his easy California surfer vibe and a transfer spot in our lit class that landed him at our lunch table like he'd always belonged. Blonde curls, board shorts even in October chill, and stories of Malibu waves that made Tristan's eyes light up. "Man, you gotta teach me that backhand slice," Tris would say, leaning in too close, and Eddie would flash that megawatt smile, clapping him on the back. I liked him, hell we all did. He brought the levity, the invites to rooftop parties where the skyline glittered like a promise. But there was an undercurrent, a subtle flex in how Eddie mirrored Tristan's energy, drawing him out like a moth to neon. It was Eddie who pushed the envelope that crisp November night at a dive bar off Bleecker Street. We'd crammed into a booth slick with spilled IPA, the jukebox blaring Springsteen, pure Americana grit. Tristan was 3 whiskeys deep, his arms slung casual around my shoulders, recounting some botched audition where he'd flubbed his monologue but charmed the director anyway. Eddie leaned across the table, eyes locked on Tris. "You're wasted on monologues, dude. You got that fire, real passion. Ever think about channeling it elsewhere?" The words hung heavy, laced with intent, and Tristan's laugh faltered, his fingers tightening on my shirt. I felt it then, the shift, like the bar's haze parted just enough to reveal the truth we'd both been dodging. Tristan pulled away, muttering about needing air, and stumbled out into the drizzle. Eddie shot me a look, half apology, half challenge, and followed. I sat there, nursing my flat soda, the lyrics Thunder Road mocking me. It's a town full of losers, and I'm pulling out of here to win. By the time I caught up, they were in the alley, Tristan's back to the brick wall, Eddie's hand on his chest, voices low and urgent. I froze in the shadows, heart slamming like a bass drum. Tristan's head tilted, lips parting, and for one gut-wrenching beat, I thought he'd lean in. He didn't. Instead, he shoved Eddie back, gentle but firm. "Not like this, man. Not when it hurts someone else." His eyes flicked to me, hidden in the doorway, and the raw ache in them hit like a slap. Eddie backed off, hands up, muttering, "You're lost, Tris." But as he brushed past me on his way out, his smirk said otherwise. Game on. The next weeks were a minefield. Tristan threw himself into rehearsals for the fall showcase. A raw one-man show about a kid from the Bronx chasing dreams in the shadows of skyscrapers. I'd catch him pacing our room at 2 a.m., script in hand, voice cracking on lines about hidden loves and unspoken truths. "It's bullshit, Alex," he'd say, collapsing onto his bed. "Why's it gotta be so damn hard just to be?" I'd sit on the floor by his mattress, knees drawn up, listening as he spilled fragments of his life. The abuela who called him her little king. The high school bullies who'd smashed his locker after overhearing a whisper. The quiet nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if he'd ever fit. One evening, after a brutal critique where the prof tore his vulnerability to shreds, he broke. Curled on his side, face buried in the pillow that still smelled like his sandalwood cologne, he whispered, "I like you, Alex, more than I should, and it's killing me." The room tilted. I crossed the gap in 2 strides, pulling him up, our knees knocking like awkward teenagers. "Then stop dying," I said, my voice rougher than I meant. "I'm right here." Our first kiss was clumsy. Teeth clacking, breaths mingling with hesitation, but it tasted like home, like the freedom I'd flown across state lines to find. In that moment, with the city humming beyond our window, the wrong dorm felt divinely right. Eddie didn't fade quietly. He slithered back in at the worst time, all charm and concern after Tristan's showcase. A triumph, standing ovation thunder that left us buzzing for days. "Proud of you, bro," Eddie said over post-show pizza, but his eyes darted to me like I was the intruder. Tristan, flushed with adrenaline, didn't notice the edge in Eddie's toast. To secrets worth keeping, or spilling. I did, and when Eddie cornered me later in the hall, beer on his breath, it spilled out. "You think you're special? He's playing you, man. Just like he did me last summer in Cali. Trusts you with his sob stories, then ghosts when it gets real. Betrayal tastes like rust." I confronted Tristan that night, our room a battlefield of crumpled programs and half-packed suitcases for Thanksgiving break. "Is it true?" I demanded, voice echoing off the walls. "Eddie, did you?" Tristan's face crumpled. Not in denial, but devastation. "It was one weekend, Alex. A mistake. I was lost figuring shit out. But you're not a mistake. You're the one who stayed." He reached for me, but I recoiled, the wound too fresh. How do I know? How do I trust this isn't just another act? The climax crashed down 2 days later, the Friday before break. I'd holed up in the library, drowning in revisions, when my phone lit up with a group chat explosion. Screenshots, blurry photos from that alley night, time-stamped, with Eddie's caption, "Some stars burn out fast. NYU nights truth hurts." Tristan's face, mid-shove, twisted in what looked like rejection. Comments flooded in. Classmates I'd nodded to in elevators, now typing fire emojis and, "Wait, Tris's?" My stomach dropped. Eddie had twisted the knife, outing Tristan not just to me, but to the whole floor, the department, the goddamn feed. I bolted back to the dorm, rain slicking the streets like oil on water. The door flew open to chaos. Tristan on the floor, knees to chest, phone shattered beside him, shards glinting like accusations. Shouts from the hall, curiosity masked as concern, pounded like war drums. "They know," he choked out, voice a ghost of itself. "Everyone knows, and it's all because I dropped to my knees, wrapping him in my arms, the world narrowing to his sobs against my chest. Lightning cracked outside, illuminating the mess we'd made. But in that storm, something solidified. "We're in this," I murmured, fierce as the gale. "Together. Fuck Eddie. Fuck the noise." The betrayal's aftershocks rippled through break. I went home to Ohio, Tristan to the Bronx, our texts a lifeline across the miles. Raw confessions at dawn, memes at midnight to pierce the ache. Eddie? He'd met an apology, all, "I was hurt, man, didn't mean to blow it up." But it rang hollow. Tristan blocked him and I followed suit, deleting the poison one swipe at a time. Back on campus in January, the air felt charged, like post-thunder clarity. Whispers trailed us in the quad, but Tristan held his head high, channeling the hurt into a revised show that gutted audiences. Human, unflinching, a testament to loving loud in a world that mutes you. Eddie transferred out mid-semester. Rumor had it to UCLA, chasing waves instead of wreckage. And us? We rebuilt, brick by tentative brick. Mornings tangled in sheets that smelled of coffee and possibility. Evenings walking the high line at dusk, hands brushing until they didn't have to anymore. It wasn't fairy tale perfect. There were nights I woke gasping from dreams of loss, days Tristan stared too long at his reflection, tracing scars no one else saw. But in the quiet humanism of it, the way we chose grace over grudge, vulnerability over armor, we found our rhythm. Graduation loomed like a horizon, but we'd learned the real change wasn't the dorm lottery or the city lights. It was picking each other, every damn day, in the face of storms that could have sunk us. Looking back, yeah, I picked the wrong dorm. Or maybe the right one. Either way, it changed everything. Taught me that love isn't a spotlight solo. It's the messy duet that echoes longest. And in the end, that's the American dream worth chasing. Not perfection, but the beautiful fight to claim your truth, side by side.